Mumonkan, case 32. A non-Buddhist questions the Buddha. A non-Buddhist said to the Buddha, "I do not ask for words. I do not ask for non-words." The Buddha remained seated. The non-Buddhist said admiringly, "The world-honored one, with his great mercy, has blown away the clouds of my illusion and enabled me to be enlightened." And after making bows, he took his leave. Then Ananda, the Buddha's attendant, asked the Buddha, "What did he realize to admire you so?" The world-honored one replied, "A fine horse runs even at the shadow of the whip." Even at the shadow of the whip. Mumon's comment. Ananda was the Buddha's disciple, but his understanding falls far short of that of the non-Buddhist. I want to ask you, what difference is there between the Buddha's disciple and the non-Buddhist? Mumon's verse. He walks along the edge of a sword. He runs over the ridge of an iceberg. With no steps, no ladders, let go your hold on the cliff. So let's start from the beginning. A non-Buddhist said to the Buddha, "I do not ask for words. I do not ask for non-words." So first of all, it goes without saying that whether we have to do with a non-Buddhist or a Buddhist, it doesn't matter. We are all consciousness, and we are all so close to consciousness. Everyone has access to this matter right here and now. So one's true self or consciousness or awareness or Buddha nature can be accessed by all, irrespective of rank, years of practice, being a beginner, experienced, monk, being an abbot, all that. All these people have the same access to consciousness. And also, of course, you, the viewer. Now, this question to the Buddha shows somehow that this non-Buddhist is quite mature. He already understands that one's true nature cannot be explained with words. Just like the taste of kiwi cannot be conveyed with words. You can say it's sweet, you can say it's a little sour, you can say there are little bits or something like it, but it will not convey the taste of kiwi. Or to give another example, driving the bicycle. That experience cannot be conveyed with words. You can say, yes, you have to hold the steering wheel and you have to step on the pedal, but it will not give someone the experience of driving the bicycle. And in the same way, you cannot convey this matter with words either. And this non-Buddhist person got that already. And he also knows that using non-words will also not lead to the ultimate understanding. So, such as we recite in the Heart Sutra, no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no thoughts, no feelings, etc., etc. Or in Advaita we have the so-called neti, which also says that it's not this, not that. And all these points to what it is not, but may eventually not give you the taste of what it is. So that too, this non-Buddhist person got already. But now let us continue with the koan itself. It says, the Buddha remained seated. The non-Buddhist suddenly said admiringly, the world-honored one with his great mercy has blown away the clouds of my illusion and enabled me to be enlightened. And after making bows, he took his leave. This is the key point of this koan. The Buddha just remained seated in silence. So the question is, what could possibly have happened during this silence, which caused this reaction from the non-Buddhist? To come to this, we have to understand that we usually live in dualism, whereby we consider ourselves as separate. One of the hallmarks of dualism is that, like these two people on the top of this cartoon here, we are communicating only mind to mind. And we take ourselves for this body or this mind, and we feel like living in an isolated cocoon. Of course, through this cocoon we have these two peepholes, which allows me to see what's happening outside. And we have these two shells, which allow me to hear what noises are out there. And we have these nostrils, which allows me to smell the smell of incense that is in this room. And this mouth, in the same way, allows me to taste the food I put in here. So the cocoons have some holes, and that is through these holes the way we can then communicate. And that then happens, what I call, from mind to mind. But when I then sit next to someone in silence, just like here these two, there is no communication possible. We would only, with eyes closed usually, be able to see and sense what goes on in our private bubbles, our own daydreams, our own feelings and bodily sensations, etc. But in this silence, in this case, there is no communication. Also, in this manner, there is no way to understand this koan, and how the non-Buddhist would suddenly come to such a breakthrough after a moment of Buddha's silence. Or there would not be a way to understand some of the charismatic teachers that are available these days, which can convey presence of awareness with just a deep look into people's eyes, or even into an audience. I had the privilege, when I was working at the United Nations, to have a meeting with Sri Chinmoy. I mean, I was in the audience, I was not face to face, and it was amazing how through just watching the audience, you could really get a sense of presence of awareness from just his looking. Another example is the Indian spiritual leader Amma. She embraces and loves tens of millions of people that I read, just by hugging, just by loving, and through that transmitting this experience in a particular way. Any person can hug, but in her case, much more was transmitted than in a normal hug, of course. So all these things you cannot understand if you are in this level. If you are living in a cocoon, there would be no communication of these matters, or there might be, but you can then not explain it anyway. Now we come to the lower part of this cartoon. We now have a situation where both people are sitting and are experiencing the non-dual presence. Both are one with consciousness. In this scenario, and in most cases, private thoughts, feelings, and perceptions can still not be communicated between the two, even though there are some exceptions that may exist, like telepathy. For example, when a mother feels when something goes very wrong with her child. Or sometimes you have also funny stories happening with twins. I, for example, had a brother-in-law who has a twin brother, and he told me that one day, for example, they would go out shopping independently from each other and not knowing that the other was also shopping, and they would come home that evening having bought the same suit and in different stores. So those are the kind of stories that you would not be able to explain in a normal fashion, but if you start realizing about consciousness and about the oneness, there may be some explanations possible. So these phenomena are still not going to happen often. They are rather rare. But what about the subject? We are no longer talking about objects like thoughts, feelings, etc., but about the subject. Our presence of awareness or consciousness, subjectivity, can somehow now be communicated easily in this situation, because the cocoons have dropped away. And it is then also in this manner possible to understand this koan, how a non-Buddhist and the Buddha himself in silence can have a communication, and how the non-Buddhist can suddenly have a breakthrough. Or how some charismatic teachers, I repeat Sri Chinmoy as an example, can communicate with a person or an audience. Or what is going on in the case of the Indian spiritual leader Amma, when she embraces, and when people, when they're being interviewed after that, are saying that they really are blown away. Those kind of phenomena can better be understood when we are achieving the oneness with consciousness. Science may find it difficult to explain this, because science are usually dealing with phenomena on this level, object to object, and science usually ignores the fact of the subject, the fact that there is consciousness, that there is awareness. But let us now return to the koan. I continue. Ananda then asked the Buddha. Ananda, by the way, is Buddha's attendant. What did the non-Buddhist realize to admire you so much? The world-honored one replied, "A fine horse runs even at the shadow of the whip." In another way, this non-Buddhist was ripe for receiving the wordless transmission of the Buddha, being himself open and without a cocoon. He was indeed then like a fine horse that didn't need to be hit by a whip to receive the message. Even the shadow of a whip was sufficient. Mumon's comment: Ananda was the Buddha's disciple, but his understanding falls far short of that of the non-Buddhist. I want to ask you, what difference is there between the Buddha's disciple and the non-Buddhist? For some reason, even though Ananda was Buddha's attendant, he only truly experienced the falling away of the cocoon much later, even after the Buddha had passed away. All this is nice and well. However, I would like to suggest a small exercise that you, the listener, could do to experience the oneness yourself. Because what use would it be for you if you have understood all what I have said, but not having had the taste of it yourself? As I already said, everybody has access to this. So it may be better for this little exercise to have your eyes closed and focus on the surface on which you are currently sitting. Maybe you're sitting on a chair, maybe you're sitting on a cushion or on the ground. It doesn't matter, but for the following, I will just assume you're sitting on a chair. So do feel the sensation in the area where your body touches the surface of the chair. How does it feel? In your current experience, are the surfaces of body and chair two different sensations? Or is there only one sensation? Do you feel two surfaces or one? And this sensation, does it take place inside of your awareness or outside of it? And let us zoom into the sensation. which appears in aware space, are they two or one? In other words, is there a border between awareness on one side and the sensation on the other side? Or is it all aware space in which the sensation vibrates? Not two, one. The same can now be done with sounds, sights, smells, feelings, thoughts, etc. And the conclusion will always be the same. There is just oneness, awareness. So we have gone through this exercise from here to here. It is when you are in non-dual aware space that you may yourself be receptive to what the Buddha communicated to the non-Buddhist in this moment of silence. We still have the verse. He walks along the edge of a sword, and he runs over the ridge of an iceberg. In other words, here and now is just one pointed, like the edge of a sword, like the ridge of an iceberg. With no steps and no ladders, let go your hold on the cliff. With no steps, no ladders, so there are no steps to achieve consciousness. Consciousness is right here and now, is closer than close. You cannot reach it through steps. Let go your hold on the cliff. So don't hold on to thoughts, feelings, sensations which pass you by in time. This concludes this meditation. Thank you very much for your attention, and see you next time.